Welcome back to stand-up number 2, if we can get in focus here. First stand-up, we officially kicked off the project, and I told you guys that we're going to be having daily stand-up. So this is stand-up day 2, and this is going to be project planning. So you can see here I have my Trello board pulled up, and we're going to go ahead and open up project planning. But first, we're going to keep it in to-do, and then we're going to define. Let me just move this. Can I move this over? Nah, it's not going to let me move that over. Hold on. Let me just, there we go. Okay. So we pulled up project planning, and we're going to go through. I have it estimated at 3 points, but we'll see when I actually define the what first. Define the stories for new work, estimate the stories, and have at least 2 weeks worth of stories created. So it sounds like a lot, but I think once we start to actually create the stories, you're gonna see how this is gonna take a while. And the video I posted today, as of the day of recording this, so November 14th, I did some minor front end work, and I just kind of stitched it together into a video. So I'm gonna make a couple story to finish out some of the things I did there, and then a story for some initial back-end work. And I think that should take us through probably 2 weeks until I get everything finalized. So let's go ahead and make those new stories. So we can hit create, and what do we do? Hold on. I think it's going to create a board. Okay, add card. So we're going to put it in the to-do column, and let's go ahead and slide project planning to in progress. So to-do is we're going to try to define these by category and keep going by category each time. So let me just move my mic out a bit. So we're going to have backend, which again is the .NET backend. So we're going to have backend, and we are going to have, we need to finish the home controller. So currently, kind of by default, everything's routing to the home controller, and I just have to finish up a couple things in there. Honestly, I'm not going to point this one that high because I don't think I have that much to do in the home controller. A lot of it is going to be done outside, so we'll see. So that'll be the first one. So backend, home controller. We'll name this. We'll say finish home controller. So again, what, done when, or what, why, and done when. So our what is going to be finish implementation of home controller. And I guess just for reference, implementation. Visual Studio home controller is this what I have here. I've already put kind of my catch-all attribute on the top that basically says, like, basically anything that's not going to be picked up by my front-end routing with the Wouter package automatically tries to go back to the server. What we need to do is we need to define our routes in our backend. So what endpoints am I going to want to be hitting for right now? Second thing after kind of looking forward is going to be setting up all the authorization, but that's a bit far too in advance for right now. Basically, all I want to do is make sure that I come in here, and when I hit this endpoint, if I do, how is it being handled? Meaning, like, if I hit a route that I don't want to be, what's going to be my return, page? What's going to happen? Am I going to redirect? Am I going to go somewhere? So that's kind of the stuff I want to think through now. I'm sure we'll come back and change as we kind of go update, but I just want to have a story in place to say, hey, this is what we want to focus on. So finish implementation of home controller, and I want to determine determine functionality of redirects, and I want to stub out potential authorization handlers. I also think that logging, I might introduce, actually no, I'm going to leave logging into its own thing. Why we need a functioning catch-all endpoint on our server. Okay, and done when I can successfully hit the home controller. All right, so this is going to be probably the next ticket I pick up. It's not a 3-point, to be honest. It's pretty small, this work. So I think, oh, it's right. We already determined that I can't add a custom field. So I'm going to put at the top points. And honestly, I think this is just going to take me a day to finish. I'm going to put it at 1 point. Just do 1. So here's one story. So backend, finish home controller. I think that's fine for right now. And the next one, I already know that I'm going to have to, is going to be another backend story. And it's going to be the engine API. So what this is going to be, I'll explain here. Implement engine API. So a couple things that I want to have kind of squared away for this is, I'll show you. So I want to define interface for engine API. And what I mean by that is part of this application is going to be engine diagnostics and performance numbers. I haven't got into too much of the actual details of the project specifically yet. On video I can, but I was hoping that it would kind of come together when we as we go through these stories. But for this one specifically, the engine API is going to be responsible for retrieving engines. So from our database, it's going to pull down a list of user submitted engine builds, and so the get all engines. I think is what it's going to be called, subject to change, but get all engines, get engine for a single one, and then you can provide like a ID or something like that. This is just, again, a rough template that we can get out. And we need to submit our post engine with a just engine type. I don't know what that is yet. And update. We could make this just an upsert. That might make it easier. I might do that. Upsert engine, just with an engine. An upsert is just an update or insert. So if a record's not found, it's going to insert it. If it's already found based on a specific key, it'll just update that record, and it just kind of makes everything one endpoint. It's nice. Basically, in SQL, that looks like pretty much on duplicate, and then update is kind of the rough syntax depending on what you're working with. So that's going to be the rough interface. Again, in .NET, you would describe it as engine. That's kind of, whoops, it's not gonna, autocorrect's not gonna like that. So we have define interface, and then the next one's going to be implement interface. To be honest, I don't know if I'm going to have the implementation here because that's more of a service work. So whenever you define backend controllers, because this is going to be an API controller, it's not going to be calling it's not going to have that logic in the controller endpoint. A controller is more of just like a routing mechanism. So it's a spot. That's why it's called an endpoint, right? It's a spot where you can call and hit the code, and then it passes you into the spot, like a service, a repository, whatever it is. You're not supposed to typically have any kind of logic in the endpoint, just as a design pattern, and I'm going to try to do the same there. So I'm not going to implement interface now that I'm thinking about it. I just want to stub out the interface of what it's going to be calling, so that way I can kind of tailor my endpoints around it. So I want to create a new API controller. Engines, I don't know. Might just stick with engines controller, just because the routing will already take care of itself then. Engines controller, and then implement or create endpoints based on interface. And I think I want to return probably OK, and then whatever the value is in JSON. So JSON object. I want to return everything coming back from my API. I want it to be in JSON format so I can consume it from my front end easily. And if we ever want to make these any kind of publicly facing APIs, I'm going to have it return JSON, right? So my private API that's going to be used by my app, I'm going to also have return JSON. So it's going to have it's going to return JSON objects. We have to consider the. I don't want, again, I'm not going to do it now, but I need to take into consideration a little bit is stub out authorization. So whether that's just comments or to-do items, basically where I'm going to be putting the authorization attribute, or however I'm going to handle that yet. Tokens, I haven't decided that yet, but basically just, have that in mind as you're kind of thinking through it, and like when you're making your endpoints. So, but again, that's going to be a separate ticket. So we have define interface, create new API controller, and I think that's it. So why our front end needs to request and retrieve engine information. Again, we're not hooking it up to the front end. We're just creating it in the back end so we can then make a story to set up our front ends, calling all the back ends. So because that's another design consideration we have to do. I'm not just going to call from my component to there. You need to have a concise way, because I might be calling it from multiple places and things like that. So you can typically do kind of like an API layer in your front end that makes those requests, and I think I might go that route. That way you can just import those functions and then call them and just await them. So that's another thing I might do. Create async endpoints. I want everything's going to be asynchronous, so I need to set it up that way, which I think, or should I just wait and do that? I might wait until I implement the service to do that, just to see. Yeah, I'm gonna wait. I'm just gonna set up the endpoints now and then just get the work set up for myself. All right, so front end needs to request and retrieve engine information, and done when we can successfully call our engine API controller and get a valid 200 response. So 200 just as the success OK. The return OK is literally just returning an HTTP status code of 200 with a return value. So I'm probably just going to be using Postman to test this out. It's the easiest way to do it. I'll make a video setting up Postman and showing you how you can test APIs locally really easily. Postman's one of the best tools to use it, and it's very widely used at companies. I use it all the time, weekly. So I think this is a good story. This is definitely a little more substantial story a little bit, but it's not too bad, to be honest with you. I think just because it's myself, I'll probably point this at a 3. if there were more people, you would have more of a conversation and discuss points. But for me, I'm going to say it's a 3 just because I got about an hour to work on every day, so it might take me a bit. I don't know. I could be off my estimate, but again, it's an estimate. That's what points are for, and you need it some way to gauge. Oh, did I put story? Oh man, I meant to put points. All right, points is 3. Okay, so we have 2 backend tickets. Backend finished home controller. Backend implement engine API. We have another one is going to be front end. And this one is going to be, see, the front end is so, I can go so many, there's so much stuff that needs to happen on the front end. Just setting up the planning is going to be a bit. But what I really want to get, I'm really trying to save the styling for, a little bit later down the road until I get a established connection to my back end and have data coming in and seeing how much data, what's the format, and things like that. Now I've gotten to template it out, kind of set up already with like those tiles and stuff that I got from Material UI, just on their template. I might make the first front end story a way to call into the back end, because I think that would give me a good spot once I establish that connection to continue with some of the styling things. So I'm going to say that. I'm going to say create API layer. I don't know if that might be a bad way to word it, because what I'm doing is I'm creating a I don't know how to word this. Create API functions to call backend. That might be. I think it'll make sense when I do the what. What I want to do literally is create an API folder that has files, methods responsible for making requests into the backend and returning the JSON result to the front end. Or no, just returning the JSON result. So what this is going to look like is pretty much just like example. Is just, it just fetch, and then you just pass in your API. So your route is API engines, or did I call it engines? I don't know what I call it. Engines. Get all engines. And then await fetch, and then that's going to return your JSON, right? So that's what I'm envisioning for this, and I need to be able to import that into whatever components that I need. So like the tile, I'm thinking that when you click a tile, it sends up the engine ID to the back end, returns back the information, and then it'll populate. So I need that set up. So this is just going to be creating that file and defining the routes to that appropriately and making sure that connection is good. And then this is kind of where the home controller comes in, because if you from the front end you try to access an invalid route, what happens? Does it try to go back to is it trying to go back to the server and say, we don't know what this is, just return a 500 or a 404? What is it? What is happening? What's the functionality there? Is it like a not found 504? We'll see. But I think for right now I'm going to limit it as this, because I think that getting that design clean and calling it will be enough work for us. So I think we're good there. Hopefully that makes sense. Why? We need our front end to call our back end endpoints. Example of this would be the engine, the tile or user engine component needs to call backend to retrieve user engine data. And done when I'm going to say the front end can successfully, whoops, hold on, call the back end. I may include just like, I'm probably just going to return mock data, just for now until I wire it up to actual my database and my service and everything like that. But I really think that establishing this connection first is going to make it really easy to come in and plug in our service and repository and be in a really good spot. Because you don't really want to be, I don't think, at least in how I'm thinking about it, I don't really want to be trying to fumble around with the front end's connections still to the back end after I've done all the service and repository work, because I don't know, that just doesn't feel as clean to me. So I just want to know the front end can successfully call the back end. That's it. So I think that this is a good. I think that's a good story to pick up. I think it makes sense, and I think it clearly defines the work that needs to be done. I am going to put this one at a 3 as well, because I think there will be some refactors to do on the front end for sure. Because one of the great problems with programming is that once you start a new project, it's all going smooth. You're like, I'm making a lot of progress, but then you start to get in the mindset of like, I gotta keep adding features and go as fast as I can. The first thing that gets sacrificed out of that is always code quality and attention to detail and refactoring and things like that. So that's what I'm hoping that this planning alleviates some of that. Because I really want this project to be very, very clean. I want the project to be, I just want it to be clean, and I want it to be an example of hopefully what I think to be good project management, but also just to honestly see where I'm at and hopefully make good content and maybe be a template for later projects down the road. I don't know. So we have 3, where we had 3 stories, 2 back ends and 1 front end story. These project planning stories are ongoing. We're going to have a lot of these because that's how this is done. You're always having project planning. You're always making new stories. And for me, I have to make a project planning story because I'm the only person. So I have to have a way to track when I'm doing project planning. So that's how I'm doing it. And honestly, I think that these 3 stories are going to take us through the end of next week. So I think that I'm going to move project. Well, hold on. I think I'm going to add a date to these. So I'm going to say 11/14/2023. I'm going to save that. I think I'm going to move this to done. So this signifies we did project planning on this date, and we have these stories. Now, the only thing I don't know is in Jira you can link stories, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that in a free version. I would be very surprised if you could. Labels. Maybe I can add a label, because I don't see anywhere, like, in Jira you can link a story pretty easily, but there's no numbers on these, which I think is just a limitation of the free version. So I think what I'm going to do is I want to make a label. And I'm going to say project planning 11/24. Basically, what I need to see is what stories came out of what project planning. So if I do it with labels, I think that'll be my workaround for this free version. So that way I can see when I made those and what we did in that project planning meeting. And I guess I should put notes on this, like with We should probably put notes created. 3 stories. We have backend. Engine API. Backend. Home controller and front end. Whatever it was, API layer. So, okay. So we have our comment there and create API functions. Okay, so you can kind of associate those. I wish there was a way to link it in Trello. I don't know if that's just, I'm just missing something, but I don't see anywhere where members. So that's just adding me as a member. Dates, attachments, cover. What is cover? Cover is just pictures, custom fields. New field. Yeah, I think that I'm going to be stopped by the free version. Labels. So, okay. So, yeah, I'm just going to use labels. I think that'll be my best route to do. So we have these 3 in to do. And next stand up, we are going to move the backend finish home controller into in progress and give our updates on that. So this was stand up 11:14, and as on the data recording, but the data posting is probably going to be a day or 2 later. So, yeah. Anyway, all right, take it easy.